All right, we are officially in the midst of the very, very busy immediate aftermath of the NFL season. The firings are happening, and they're happening at a very fast rate. Last night, the 49ers did fire their special teams coach, Brian Schneider. That's according to ESPN's Nick Wagoner. Already did a big video on that, so you can go check it out. We'll talk about it in just a few minutes. But today, we have news that the Tennessee Titans have fired the former 49ers front office man, Ran Carthon, who was Tennessee's GM for just 2 seasons. Apparently, there was a power struggle at the top of Tennessee's organization. Josina Anderson said that this was indicated to me days ago that this was up for discussion. There had been questions around the league as to the dynamic between Carthon and Chad Brinker, who is the president of football operations for Tennessee, and who really had final say, and where that fell within allowable policies. Several execs around the league had been asking about this to pertinent league officials. Now, as some expected, and thus monitoring closely, it all apparently came to a head. So Carthon is out. He invested a ton, or maybe it was Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, that signed off on it, because it sounds like there was some kind of power struggle at the top. But right before this season, the Tennessee Titans went on a massive spending spree, hundreds of millions of dollars, to bring in a lot of free agents. Calvin Ridley, the receiver, was one of them. Everybody thought that might be an overpay, right? When Calvin Ridley came in at I think it was about $30 million a year for the Tennessee Titans. And it obviously didn't help. The Titans ended up securing the number 1 draft pick with the worst record in all of football. Carthon went through 2 coaches in his time, from Vrabel, obviously, to Callahan this year. Callahan blew up at the media late in the year. There was a profanity-laced answer. He was not happy about his team, I think, being called soft. Obviously, big problems in Tennessee, but Ran Carthon did not have a long time to fix them, and it's going to be really interesting to see where Ran goes next. He was part of the group of 49ers executives, staffers that was hired away by other teams over the course of the past several seasons. Anytime that you have a lot of success, as the 49ers really did between 2019 and 2023, your staffers and your executives are going to get interest elsewhere. For the 49ers, Carthon was the director of player personnel. He also signed an extension with the Tennessee Titans before this past season, making this an increasingly bad look. The Titans, here's the problem. If you're only going to give, and this is assuming, let's just toss the potential power struggle out the window, but assuming that Ran Carthon did have control over what was happening there, final say over what was happening there, if he felt that he needed to invest as much as he did in this past season, I mean, we saw how much the Tennessee Titans spent in free agency. If he felt that he needed to deliver quick results or else he'd be fired, that's why bad franchises stay bad. Sometimes you need that runway. And the Titans gave him this extension. So he has 4 years left on his current contract. The extension seems to indicate that he had time, or would have had time, to turn this around. But obviously he didn't. And again, maybe the power struggle may be part of this, but you have to allow time for stuff to come to fruition, especially if there are head coaching changes happening in the middle of all this. The 49ers, when they hired Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in 2017, I think it was very important for both men to get assurances from the franchise that they would have runway to actually build something up. And I think that it was also key for them that they were hired at the same time, that it was a joint coach GM hiring, because that would ensure that there at least was agreement at the top to begin the journey, and it would ensure that that runway would allow the 49ers to build things cohesively side by side. When Ran Carthon came in for the Tennessee Titans, he was paired with a head coach, a pre-existing head coach, Mike Vrabel. And then when Vrabel was fired following that first season and they moved to Brian Callahan, well, all of a sudden he was working with a new coach. It wasn't this joint hiring like Shanahan and Lynch were in 2017. And I think that got things off to a weird start. And now that we hear it from Josina Anderson, there's also the Chad Brinker effect, the president of football operations, having some say. It seems like there was a power struggle at the very top. So the bottom line is that this was a mess at the top. Many hallmarks of a struggling franchise for the Tennessee Titans. And now Ran Carthon is out. Former director of player personnel for the 49ers. We'll see if he makes his way back to San Francisco now that he is available. There is a hint on Dre Greenlaw's future. This comes from Sydney Warner. It's Fred Warner's wife. This was posted on social media. Took this from the screenshot from Brad Graham at the SF Niners, who does a great time. Point of view, your team didn't make the playoffs, and the NFL free agency is taking your best friend to another team, and we are all severely unwell. Here's another screenshot. There's Dre Greenlaw's 57. We quite literally have been blessed with the best neighbors the past 2 years. Our last block party. Seems to be some finality in what Sydney Warner is saying. Now, Greenlaw, even if he signs elsewhere, will still be under contract with the 49ers for about 2 months. San Francisco will carry him on the team until the start of the new league year. But it is very possible that discussions have already taken place. Exit interviews are going on as we speak. I think a lot of them happened yesterday. It is very possible that the 49ers have informed Dre Greenlaw that they don't believe they'll be able to afford him for the 2025 season and beyond. I think this is really interesting to me because Dre is obviously one of the best linebackers in the game, but he only played in about a half of football following his Achilles tear. Now, in that half, he looked really damn good against the Los Angeles Rams. 305 days after he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl, Greenlaw was on the field, seemingly having not lost a step, which was borderline shocking to me. He was really sore after, and then that soreness persisted. He tried to play 4 plays against the Miami Dolphins about 10 days later, but had to be removed from the game. So there are still questions about Dre Greenlaw's health and durability following this Achilles tear. However, there are not questions about his explosiveness, which I think is the miraculous thing. I think that the fact that he was able to put what he did on tape against the Rams over that half, even if there are still questions about his durability, I do think that probably did make him some money over the course of this offseason. But just how much money, that's where the tricky, fascinating part of this comes in, because you got to check 2 boxes. You have to check the explosiveness box, and you've got to check the durability box, because availability is the best ability in this league. How much money? I'm not exactly sure. The 49ers might have an idea how much Dre Greenlaw will command, but you were not going to know for sure until March. And that's why I hate speaking with absolute certainty on any of this. But apparently, based on some, the social media posts of people who probably have some knowledge of this situation, I would assume the Warners have some knowledge of this situation. They're talking as if Dre Greenlaw is not going to be with the 49ers next year. Now, to give you an idea of the linebacker market, this is what it looks like. We can take a look at over the cap. This is sorted by average per year. Very top of the market's Roquan Smith of the Baltimore Ravens at $20 million per year. Fred Warner is number 2 in the market, so he's near the very top as well at about $19 million per year. Dre Greenlaw was down here at about 10 to 15 on the deal that's going to expire in March at $8.2 million per year. I think that Greenlaw, prior to the Achilles tear, it was a no-brainer that he was going to eclipse the 10 million mark. I think he would have moved up into that top 10 territory, which does involve about 10 million per year. Obviously, the Achilles tear changes things, but you probably just have to assume that he's at least a 6 to 7 million player anyway. Devondre Campbell, who wasn't good for the 49ers this year, and then he quit on the team. Devondre Campbell earned $5 million from San Francisco in 2024. And that's a player who definitely was past his prime when he signed with the 49ers. So that's where you start to talk about the market for Dre Greenlaw. It's probably going to be somewhere between 6 and 12 million per year. And that's a really wide range. I get it. But maybe the 49ers, even at the lower end price, maybe they have come to terms with the fact that they probably won't be able to fit Dre Greenlaw into their salary structure. 1 year prove it deal is possible, but even a prove it, like Devondre Campbell signed a 1 year deal that was worth $5 million per year. It's not cheap. So made the Devondre Campbell desertion even worse. I mean, the guy's getting paid $5 million per year and he's refusing to play. But anyway, that's where the financial parameters may stand. And we have our first big hint on the situation from Sydney Warner on social media. There you go. You should check out the San Francisco Standard. Big article up there today. This is my biggest article so far on the Standard. You get humbled quick. The 10 precise moments when the 49ers season fell apart. Some great photos as well. Starting with, speaking of Dre Greenlaw, the fateful step when he stepped out onto the field on February 11th in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl and ruptured his Achilles. This is something that had long-ranging impacts on the 49ers, not just in the Super Bowl. I think they would have won had Dre Greenlaw not torn his Achilles, but also on this 2024 season. We just talked about Devondre Campbell. We just talked about the mess at linebacker. How about the foreshadowing that we got when Brandon Ayuk broke down into tears in the locker room 2 days after the Super Bowl? I think that indicated this offseason would be filled with that hold-in drama. We didn't know at the time if it'd be a holdout or a hold-in, but it felt like something dramatic was coming, and it did come, and I think that definitely tarnished the 49ers season. I think that was as negatively impactful as anything that happened to the 49ers over the course of the 2024 calendar year. Obviously, the tragedy that took hold, Ricky Pearsall shot, he miraculously survived, but the 49ers went through other off-field tragedies over the course of the season. Chris Foerster's wife, Michelle, died from ovarian cancer just a week before the Super Bowl. Charvarius Ward's 23-month-old daughter, Amani Joy, passed away in October. And then Trent Williams and his wife announced the deaths of their twins, one during pregnancy and one stillborn. Just a season, just an excruciating season for the 49ers, both on and off the field. 90 minutes before kickoff, we got news that Christian McCaffrey was inactive for the 49ers. He would later be placed on injured reserve with Achilles tendonitis. Then San Francisco blew 3 divisional leads in the fourth quarter. They just fired their special teams coordinator, Brian Schneider. The special teams unit was the worst in the league. One of its contributions was this: a botched kickoff, especially botched coverage for San Francisco, that allowed DJ Dallas to get to the level of Jake Moody, the kicker, hurt Jake Moody. That's a high ankle sprain happening on the picture in front of you. Moody would miss the game. The 49ers would lose the game because of it, because they didn't have a kicker. They lost by 1 point to the Arizona Cardinals, and then he would never be the same kicker again. That was very tied to Brian Schneider's firing, which was reported last night. Worst special teams unit in the league for the San Francisco 49ers. Then came Ayuk's miserable half hour against the Chiefs. Remember when he dropped this pass against Kansas City? And after dropping this pass, he tore his ACL about 30 minutes later. And the 49ers, they were doomed at that point to not have the efficient offense that they had in 2023. You were never going to climb back up to number 1 without the ex-wide receiver for whom you dished out $30 million annually. They still had a chance to get back up on the horse against the Seattle Seahawks on November 17th. This was after the most impressive win of the season at Tampa Bay. And they were dominating Seattle's offense. The 49ers hadn't allowed a single touchdown. About 4 yards per play allowed when Nick Bosa, on his second sack of Geno Smith on the afternoon, hurt the other side of his oblique. And that knocked Bosa out of the game. Geno Smith proceeded to go crazy against the 49ers. They lost to the Seahawks, and that's when things really started spiraling. They had one more desperate chance at pulling themselves back into the race. Maybe two more chances. But here, this game against Buffalo, I don't want to say that it was the kill shot, but it was very symbolic of a lost season, and that Christian McCaffrey was back and he was fully healthy and he was feeling great. He talked about this in the locker room today, and he looked like he was bolting his way to a touchdown, but Taylor Rapp got him by a shoestring, and that shoestring tackle turned into McCaffrey slamming his knee to the turf and suffering a season-ending PCL tear. The type of frustration that really, really marked this 2024 49ers season. But McCaffrey, I mean, he's talking about this in positive terms now. Look at this quote from Christian McCaffrey. It was good that it happened because I got to taste it again and understand what I can do. I'm feeling great now, because he indeed was back up to speed for that very brief, frustrating glimpse against the Buffalo Bills. And finally, the final straw, Deebo Samuel's drop. They were already on playoff life support at this time when they played the Rams on December 12th, but Deebo Samuel, even after a win against the Chicago Bears, on social media indicated that he wanted the ball more, so they got him the ball more against the Rams, and he dropped what should have been a touchdown that probably would have sealed the game for the 49ers or come close to it. He dropped it, and that was that. It was emblematic of the 49ers lost season. So if you want to read all about this and see all these great pictures, go check out the San Francisco Standard. Mike has put the link in the description. It's the most in-depth coverage you're going to get of the 49ers and of this offseason. We already talked about Brian Schneider's firing in that piece. Right now, we're waiting to see what San Francisco does with Nick Sorensen, the defensive coordinator. That's the one outstanding question at this moment. You could also sign up for a membership at the San Francisco Standard while you are there. 49ers re-signed 11 players from their practice squad yesterday, so they're starting to build out this roster. We got a hint on Dre Greenlaw. He might not be back next season. Sidney Warner on social media saying that free agency is going to pry Dre Greenlaw away from the 49ers. And the Titans fire the former 49ers executive Ran Carthon after just 2 seasons. It appears there's a bit of a power struggle at the top, but regardless of what happened, if you don't give people runway to turn things around, and Will Levis was terrible, by the way, for the Tennessee Titans. That was brutal. But if they're not appropriate runway to turn things around, then things probably will never be turned around. And the Titans have been in a bad cycle for some years now. The 49ers, they didn't turn things around, record-wise until year 3 under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And Ran Carthon got only 2 years. So sometimes patience is necessary. And I think organizational unity at the top is very necessary. That's something that the 49ers have had over the years, and they're going to have to stay unified now that they've gone through a particularly tough year. The decisions they make, and one was to fire Brian Schneider. We'll see what happens with Nick Sorensen moving forward, but the decisions they make, they need to come from a place of unity at the very top so the team can weather the storm. There's your NFL 49ers update. Go ahead and check out the big piece up on the San Francisco Standard. I'll keep you updated throughout the day. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you soon.